Welcome to the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Lawyer Minds is an ever-growing ecosystem for all the resources modern lawyers need. As the official Lawyer Minds podcast, we'll discuss everything from the latest happenings on the website to industry news. Get ready. Here we go. It's time to dive into the minds of successful lawyers. Here are your hosts, Ted Thomas and Mike Campbell.
Mike, what's going on?
Oh, not much, buddy. How are you?
I'm prepping for trial, believe it or not. Final pretrial conference today, scheduled for trial. The county we're trying the case in is only red and is not purple, according to the governor in Ohio. And so As long as it's not purple, I believe we get to go forward.
What are your nerves like right now, knowing you got to go into trial next week?
Oh, excited. I mean, this is what we do. It's, I've said for a long time, I always wanted a job where my only job was to try cases. And, but when you're a solo practitioner, you only get so many and, so many get settled. So, the way that I kind of built the firm was so that there were a bunch of lawyers feeding the trial calendar, and some of those are going to drop off, but I'm going to get to try more cases just because of the sheer volume of cases that are getting worked up. And so that's kind of what we've come up with. And I love it. So dropping in, I picked up the file about 3 weeks ago, getting familiar with it, splitting up the witnesses, and I'm going to be off to the races.
So I got to be honest with you. I'm a complete nerd. And I'm glad this is why, and I know we discussed this in another podcast about joining forces, but I do enjoy trying cases, but my biggest thrills come from appellate briefs or motions, winning motions. Yeah.
Might as well do tax law. Same thing.
I enjoy writing out an argument that the other side has presented, and then finding the flaw in it and then exploiting it. And it's just how my nerdy brain works.
Yeah. But if I have to communicate that in writing, it's not going to come out very well when I do it. Now, if I'm doing it on cross-examination, I can usually make it work. But yeah, if I have to write, I have a problem with commas, according to my wife.
Yeah.
We get a big fight. She's like, "You never use commas." I say, "I use commas when I'm pausing in my speech, comma." And then I tell her she uses commas like they grow on trees, just puts them everywhere. So
yeah. I have issues with commas, and I used to have issues with like the possessive after an S, the possessive apostrophe after that. Anyway, so we got an interesting podcast coming up.
We do. Joel Feldman, that I've known Joel for several years through AAJ, and, talk about someone who's dedicated his life to making the world a better place, not just through trying cases and what we do, but through, the Indistracted Driving Project that came about after the death of his daughter, which is now, a little over 10 years ago now.
Yeah. Tragic story. And I'm sure he'll talk some more about this, and he'll talk about the fact that I've watched him present, and I've watched him talk about how, hey, I get it. You guys are all using your phones, but let's be honest about it, and let's talk about it. And here are the consequences. I like that approach more than everybody, sign a pledge not to smoke cigarettes or drink when you're in 8th grade. I like the approach of talking to adults or high schoolers like, hey, we know that you're doing this. It's okay. Let's talk about it. And let's talk about how we can avoid doing it.
Yeah. Well, one of the amazing things about it is it's not just he and his wife that have gone all over, speaking. Right. They've put together this system, and, and maybe he'll talk about it today. They've even had like communications specialists come in and study the program and help put together the slides and things like that on how to communicate to teenagers. And so when lawyers from across the country are volunteering to go into these high schools and middle schools even now to do these presentations, they're using communications skills and types of communication that appeal specifically to that demographic that they've scientifically tested. So, it's just amazing what they've put together and the good work that they're doing.
Yeah. And when we're talking about one way to make a meaningful impact, I mean, I drive all the time in a college town, and I can't count how many people I see on their phones while they're driving. And you can just reach a handful of those folks. The impact is meaningful.
Yeah. Casey was in college when she passed away.
Yep.
We're looking forward to the interview. So let's hear from Joel Feldman. All right, and we're on with Joel Feldman. Joel, thanks for joining the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great today, Tad. Thank you for having me.
Joel, you've been a lawyer for many years now, and I'd really like to start to learn about you, and we'll talk about indistracted driving in a minute. But I'd love to know more about you and your practice and your firm, and bring us kind of up to date.
So I've been fortunate to have had only one legal job since 1978, and that's with Anapol Weiss in Philadelphia, my present firm. And they have been wonderful to work with all these years, wonderful after my daughter's death with respect to the distracted driving program, but great mentors and folks who really want to do a really, really good job for clients, did a great job for clients. And clients always came first. And I'm so thankful that I wound up with them, because in law school, I didn't know the difference between plaintiff's firm or defense firm. Whoever offered me a job, I was going to take that job. And this is the first one I got. And I started as a law clerk in 1979.
Wow.
Hard to believe, really.
Yeah, well, you fell in with a great firm, no question. So what kind of practice did you have starting off?
Well, I started working for Paul Anapol, the founder, and he had a products liability practice. So I worked with him doing products liability cases, single cases. It wasn't in the era of mass torts per se yet. And I handled those for a while, and then I got sick of working for him, and I got my independence within the firm. And I handled a lot of dram shop cases, products cases, some malpractice cases, some larger auto and some premises cases. And then as we got into, 2000s and all, then we moved into mass torts way back with the Fen cases through Vioxx, and to the present day, pretty much any mass tort that's out there, we're doing it, whether it's a pharmaceutical case or a medical device case, and some other things, some toxic torts, some water cases, do some vaccine cases. So like I was talking to somebody the other day, and he was talking about, he's not a lawyer, but he was talking about how he gets bored sometimes. I have never been bored a day in my life practicing law.
That's great.
I've been aggravated with stress, but I've never been bored.
I had a final pretrial conference today, so I know aggravation.
Yeah, I bet you do. Yeah, I bet you do.
Well, Joel, tell us a little about, you lost your daughter. I guess it's been a little over 10 years ago now. She would have been 21 and was in college at the time. Tell us a little bit about that and how that brought you into your Distracted Driving project.
So Casey was killed as a pedestrian by a 58-year-old man reaching for his GPS. And I was so angry at this man. And it was actually 3 or 4 months after she was killed. I was just out walking the dog. I remember it was a beautiful fall day. All of a sudden it dawned on me, I'm angry at a man for taking his eyes off the road to reach for his GPS when I would send emails, read emails, and text all the time. So it was kind of a shock to me. I don't know why I didn't figure it out before, but I was a hypocrite, and I knew I had to change the way I drive. And so being a lawyer, when people, mostly police departments, municipal folks would ask me to talk, at the beginning I did. And then I like talking about it. I mean, there are moments in presentations where it might be a little emotional, but on balance, I like talking to folks. And I think that for me, telling Casey's story in the context of a well-designed scientific presentation that maximizes the opportunities for behavior change, that lessens the tragedy of Casey's death just a bit. And that's my mission now. And I practice law a little bit, but most of what I do really is distracted driving. And pretty much everybody that knows me knows that as well. And it's interesting. I love doing what I do now, even a little bit better than being a lawyer, and I'm not aggravated. So it's a good mix. It's a good mix. I'm very fortunate in all the opportunities that I get.
Well, and so you're saying you started out, police officers, they would ask you to speak, but you've grown the Distracted Driving Project into so much more than just you and your wife doing these presentations. Tell us, what inspired you to make this even bigger and have all of these other lawyers and people facilitate these discussions?
It was about 9 years ago that I went to an injury board meeting. Our firm is a member of injury board. And I was there with Wayne Parsons, John Baer, Tom Young, and we were just talking about how we could expand the program. So if you fast forward to today, there have probably been close to 300, 325 lawyers, 99% of them trial lawyers, and many of them injury board members who've gone out and taken our materials and gone out and done talks in schools. So we've now reached pretty much right on the button, 500,000 kids, all through volunteers.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And yeah, we're an injury board firm as well. Mike and I, and all those are very familiar names. And I think it's so great to have, this cadre of lawyers who support you and this mission, and to encourage, what you've done to grow this. If an attorney, we talk about this for AJ, but if an attorney wants to sign up to give an indistracted driving presentation, do they have to come up with their own presentation? Do they contact schools themselves? How does an attorney volunteer to do this?
So they go to our site, enddistracteddriving.org or enddd.org. And we have a section under Take Action, AAJ Trial Lawyers Campaign. It's one of the drop downs.
Right.
And there they can register, they can get the materials. If they use a Mac, they can get a presentation for Mac. If it's PC, PC. If it's middle school, there's one for that. High school, one for that. We also have community talks. A number of the lawyers are doing talks in their communities at businesses. And when I say doing talks, of course, until March 10th of this year, it was live. And since then, it's been by Zoom or some other platform. And I haven't done a ton of Zoom talks. I certainly would have done more live talks had not the pandemic come, but I've done close to about 30 now. And it's actually going better than I thought it would. So they can register. It's interesting because our website's pretty robust. It's been around a while, and we will get, once or twice a month, we'll get a request, and the request goes like this: do you have a trial lawyer who can come and volunteer? So the word has gotten out that trial lawyers are actually the folks who are doing it.
Interesting.
So that's just one or two. And if it's in Kentucky, I'd send it down to you, or that kind of thing. If it's up in Buffalo, New York, I'd send it to John Baer, that kind of thing. What the way most people get the talks is they just reach out to people in their community. Now, it used to be we would do assemblies and classes. Now it's pretty much just classes. Health teachers, who are the gym teachers, want to have speakers come in because for a lot of reasons, it's a vital topic, but they also get to sit back and take some time off. Mm-hmm. Driver's ed. And there's also some other schools that have, it's called various different things, but for seniors, they have what's called transition class. It's just like an open class, and they learn about how to be adults, I guess you might describe it. So they do that. We also this year, we were about to launch May 1st, our elementary school distracted driving program. We came up with lesson plans for 2nd and 3rd, 4th and 5th, and 6th graders. So who's ever watching this, if you have kids of that age or you know people, please reach out to me. We had child psychologists, elementary ed content developers, social emotional learning experts, teachers. They all said there's a need for it. I want to teach your kids. This might be scary for some of you because I know you drive distracted like I did. I want to teach your kids to recognize when you drive distracted and respectfully, we teach them to respectfully speak up. Dad, I love you, but I don't feel safe when you look at your phone and drive me. And I focused that statement with moms and dads, 120 moms and dads. And I'd have dads tearing up and moms tearing up. And it was just at a focus group. It wasn't even with their kids saying it, just saying it to them because it hits home. So we have those materials available. We had to create an animated figure, go to animators. We have a couple of videos in there. And we are actually offering for teachers incentives, financial incentives to go ahead and do this. And it's what's technically in traffic safety called a child to parent distracted driving intervention. And the US Department of Transportation has latched onto it because it's the first, and they've assigned us researchers who've helped us set up surveys in and around it so they can measure the efficacy of it. And I'm really optimistic. Our goal, keep kids safe in the car, keep mom and dad safe, but we want to create a generation of kids that's going to look at distracted driving just like the kids today look at drunk driving. It is not acceptable. They'll be addicted to their phones like everybody else, but they're in the car.
So that's really, that is what changed, right? The dynamic changed with drunk driving was people just over time decided that this is completely unacceptable. And one of the things that I harp on is I think trial lawyers are safety advocates. And I wrote an article a couple of years ago for our local trial attorney magazine where I referenced your NDD, the Undistracted Driving Organization. And my question is what do you think it is about plaintiffs' lawyers, or you in particular, that has given you the ability or opportunity to go out and spread this message far and wide?
Well, absent Casey's death, I don't know that I'd be doing this.
Sure.
And if somebody else who was a plaintiff's trial lawyer, they had that tragedy and they reached out, I'd like to think that I would have said, gosh, this is something we need to do for our kids, for our community, and of course to help another trial lawyer. I look out, used to be in classes or auditoriums, but now it's through Zoom and it's still set up. You can see the kids' faces, if it's a class. I look at those faces, those young faces, and I know distracted driving can take them away in just a few seconds. And I know that we have to do something to keep them safe. And trial lawyers are so effective. I don't know the numbers anymore, but of the 500,000 talks and those 325 lawyers, we would reach out to folks afterwards. Hey, how did Mike Campbell do? How did Tad Thomas do? Give us some feedback on our speakers. I probably did that with the first 75 or so speakers. It was overwhelming. I never got anything bad about anyone. So I stopped doing it, quite honestly, because I figured, I have better things to do with my time. But, most of the vast majority of the trial lawyer speakers are in fact parents, so I have represented, I still do have a couple of cases involving kids who were killed, but I don't know, 30 or 40 sets of parents over the years. And always the hardest cases. I take out my yellow pad, sit across from the desk. I do a good job on the case, but when they'd walk out, I'd say, gosh, what did I do to try to lessen their grief? What did I do? So I've gotten obviously better at doing that, but and we probably have many people who will watch this. We probably have many people who've had clients and their family members killed by distracted driving. I'll call it the standard presentation, you have a photo of Casey and some photos of other kids around the country who were killed. We'll slide in one from Missouri, one from Kentucky. It's easy, it's simple. And I expect lawyers are going to take this as a base. And if they want to use this just the way it is, that's great. If they want to make changes to it, that's fine as well. We're talking about people who know safety, know how to relate to people, and know how to connect.
And, as trial lawyers, we're always talking about understanding our audience, and the audience that, you're targeting started out, I guess, with high school students, and you've gradually gotten younger and younger, but you've tailored your presentation and your message. It's not just Joel Feldman doing a PowerPoint. You've actually tailored this presentation scientifically to hit those demographics.
So I remember where I was. It was about my fourth or fifth presentation I'm on a stage at some school in New Jersey. And in the middle of it, I say to myself, I'm looking at the people. I said, what do I know about getting people to give up using cell phones? And I said, gosh, there's got to be a better way. So fast forward, I talked to researchers, people at Children's Hospital of Pennsylvania, of Philadelphia. They helped us create a science-based presentation. I also went back to school. I got a master's in counseling. So there's a lot of behavior change theory involved in this. And, if Mike Campbell, I'm making this up, Mike looks at text practically every time he drives, but he hasn't been in a crash yet. I think it's a waste of time telling him it's dangerous.
Sure. I agree.
But if I could appeal to him in other ways, and some of those ways are self-protection. I mean, you're driving, if you got people in the car, they're probably the most important people in the world to you. You can't be a defensive driver if you're looking down at your phone. Being a role model for your kids. I'll ask moms and dads at my business talks, raise your hands if you do anything to keep your kids safe. Go on, guys, raise your hands if you do anything to keep your kids safe. Raise your hands. Mike, are you a parent?
I'm not, but I'll raise my hand anyway.
All right.
So,
well, Tad, keep yours up. Keep your hand up. All right.
Sure.
You do anything to keep your kids safe, right, Tad?
Yes.
Now only keep your hand up if you haven't driven distracted with your kids in the car.
Yeah.
That creating what psychologists call cognitive dissonance, where you're feeling a little uncomfortable about, hey, you say you talk a great game, but your actions don't enforce that or not synchronous with it. That creates discomfort, and it's a great opportunity to change. We use a lot of that in presentations. We also talk about respect. Kids taught me this. Distracted driving is disrespectful to others. I never thought of that.
That's great.
Everybody would say, if you ask them, respecting others is one of my core values, one of my core beliefs. I would have told you that before Casey was killed. I'd hold the door open for you. I'd give you directions on the street. I'd help you any way I could. And I was proud of the fact that I was respectful to others. Once I got behind the wheel of a car, though, my respect for others, I just chucked it right out the window. And I bet of all the parents who'll watch this, I bet all of you have taught your kids to respect others. And I bet none of you have said, you pick and choose when you want to be respectful of others. Only do it when it's convenient. Your kids that it's a full-time job, even when we get behind the wheel of a car. So a lot of this is built into the presentations.
So now, even during COVID, if somebody wants to sign up, whether it's a lawyer or anybody else that wants to do the presentations, you'll accept anybody, trial lawyers, divorce lawyers, non-lawyers. They can come to the website, sign up, and they can reach out to schools. You have materials on the site, like maybe form letters or anything, is how to reach out to the schools?
Yeah, once you register, there is a form letter to schools. It gives a little bit, just the basics of how it's a science-based presentation. It gives we have some reference letters from principals, not from me doing talks, but tribes around the country talking about what great communicators they are. Of course, downloading the presentations. We have some safe driving agreements and things like that. But it's a really big issue for kids. I mean, there are still more people in our country killed by drunk driving than distracted driving. But when we get down talking to our kids, it's not the case anymore. And there's a much greater number of car crashes involving all of us, but particularly our kids, related to distracted driving than drunk driving. So teachers know that, schools know it. And then, a lot of lawyers are doing the kid talks, but they're also doing business talks. And, it's a really good, I'll give you a quick example. I'm a plaintiff's trial lawyer, right? So when I sue corporations, I always expect them to, hide stuff from me, to try to take the nasty way out. And I got to work hard and they're not good people and that kind of stuff. I don't work with risk management in corporations. I work with the safety department. And I'm so impressed with those folks in the safety department. I used to offer, would you like me to talk about the legal liability of distracted driving and things? I rarely got taken up on it. Most of the times they said, no, we don't care about that. I just want my employees to go home. I want them to be safe. I want them to go home to their families, and I want them to talk to their kids about it. So it's a community program, and it starts with employers. So I'm happy to do Zoom talks with anybody who is watching this. Your first one, we can do it together. If you want me to do a Zoom talk at a business that you care about or is important to you, I've done talks with Eastern Kentucky Co-op, a number of talks with them, a couple of other businesses in Louisville, trying to say
Close. You're close.
We've had this discussion, Joel. We've had this discussion, how
you're
it's
close.
pronounced. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying.
Yeah.
So yeah, lots of opportunities. And I'm just so thankful that my cause has been taken up by so many other folks.
It really is amazing, Joel. And, I'm so sorry for your loss. I can't imagine the pain that you had when you heard. But, I didn't know anything about distracted driving. I never thought about distracted driving until your program. And I think it's all across the country. I mean, there's commercials during the Super Bowl now about distracted driving. And I have to believe that wouldn't have happened without some of the things that you've been doing and the word that you've gotten out and the science behind your presentations. If you got an iPhone now and you text somebody that's driving, they can put a setting on saying, hey, I'm not checking my phone because I don't do distracted driving. And I credit you and all that you've done to make this a nationally known issue. So thank you for everything that you've done, Joel.
Well, I appreciate it. There's a lot of other folks. Casey's favorite color was pink.
Mm-hmm.
We have a pink wristband to remember Casey right here, but I have all these other wristbands. These are just half of my wristbands of the young ladies who were killed by distracted driving.
Oh, wow.
Given to me by their moms. And here's the guys. And again, these are just half of them because I rotate. I can't wear them all at the same time. And you know what they say to me? They say to me, they tell me what a wonderful child they had, their daughter, their son. And they say, would you wear the wristband? Obviously, I say yes. And then they say, do something so this doesn't happen to any other people. And so that's what I've been able to tell them, that I have trial lawyer volunteers all across the country who want to do something so this doesn't happen to any other people.
Yep. Well, Joel, we're going to get the message out. We're going to, post this. It'll be all over our social media. We'll have links to the Distracted Driving website, and we will advocate for you and for your program as much as we possibly can. So
I appreciate that. Thanks so very much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for being on, Joel. All right. So I've been saying I was going to sign up for this. I actually went so far as signing up a couple of years ago, but then didn't reach out to enough schools to get the programs, and I let it drop. But I'm not making any more excuses. Now when kids are doing Zoom, everything, I have to imagine they're looking for good content and something different from the run of the mill school day. So I've got it pulled up on my computer right now. I'm getting signed up.
Yeah. I mean, and there's nothing that, especially if you're a trial lawyer or you even go into court and talk to a judge, you can talk to some kids, especially not you, but the proverbial you, everybody listening. Mm-hmm. You can talk to some kids. You'll be all right. I promise. Yeah.
Well, and I got a 15-year-old now that, he obviously knew how to use a cell phone before he knew how to drive. So, I think about all the kids at his school that are out driving, to and from hockey practice now. And
right.
So.
I mean, I drove by an elderly lady the other day who was driving erratically, and she's on her phone. And I'm thinking 25 years ago, I was having a hard time staying focused while I was on the phone in the house. Now you couple that with in a moving vehicle.
Yeah.
What are we thinking? Like, when did this become normalized?
Well, I'm glad we could get Joel on, and looking forward to pushing this out. And we'll have the links that Joel's going to send us for everybody to be able to click. And whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a trial lawyer, divorce lawyer, like I said, non-lawyer that's listening to this, this is something that is easy to do, where we can help society as a whole. And it's already been done for us. The presentation is there. You just got to make the effort to get signed up with a school and go out and do it.
That's right. I mean, if you're a trial lawyer and you're listening to this, embrace the idea that you're a safety advocate. You're doing things right now to try to make the world a safer place, and understand our role within society is to try to make the world a safer place. And what Joel is doing, and then basically gift wrapping this presentation for you to present is one small thing that you can do with a huge impact. Huge impact.
Yeah. All right, Mike, next time.
Sounds good, buddy.
That wraps another episode of the official Lawyer Minds podcast. Please consider subscribing to the show wherever you listen to podcasts. Explore the other content Lawyer Minds has to offer and engage with us on social media. Your feedback on the show and ideas for future shows is always welcomed. See you next time.